base our personal lives, and we don't offer anything either. So that works in a number of instances. Many of us maybe like that type of interaction with our supervisors, but these are unprecedented times, and many of our PIs may have a sense, or many of us even in regards to our colleagues have a sense that people are struggling, but often we don't know how to ask, and we don't want to intrude, or perhaps we're afraid of the answer. So the tips that I would give in that regard are, first, don't be afraid to ask the question, and don't be afraid of the answer that you get. You're not a trained professional, most of us, and they know you're not. So don't be afraid to ask the question, and don't be afraid of the answer. In terms of asking the question, it can be as simple as, how are you coping right now? Oftentimes what can help is if you're seeing something, you're seeing odd behaviors or a change in their mood or their disposition, then it can be really helpful to just say what you see. I notice you seem distracted right now. How are you coping? Or you seem upset. How are you doing? Or I get the sense that this feels really overwhelming right now. How are you doing? So, and what's the worst that can happen? Well, they might look at you and say, I'm fine, and dismiss it. Not a problem. You've still opened that door, right? And you've let them know that you are someone that they can come to if they need it. But make sure that you ask again over the coming days and over the coming weeks. Now, if they're not coping, they might cry, and that's okay as well. You might be the only person that's actually asked them how they've been doing or how they're coping in the last weeks. Tears might make you feel awkward. Don't worry. Try and embrace that awkwardness and actually focus on the person you are talking to. What do they need? What are they saying? Now, they might disclose big feelings or information that feels a bit scary to you. And in that moment, your job is not to try and fix anything. Your job is, in that moment, just to listen and to acknowledge what they're saying. It sounds like you're feeling overwhelmed, exhausted, worried right now. Try and echo their words and their sentiments back to them. It'll show that you're listening, and it'll make them feel understood. And that goes a long way in when you're dealing with big issues right now, okay? And if you think that they would benefit from talking to someone, then often it can help us to normalize these situations by using the royal we, or the invisible masses when we talk about it. So when we experience these thoughts or feelings, it can really help to talk to someone. Or in the past, when students have felt this way, talking to someone's helped them to get the tools that they need to get through this. Now, it can be helpful to have a few numbers on hand to talk to your friends about this, or talk to your friends or your colleagues or students of your own if you need to. And it can be as simple as, hey, I always keep a couple of numbers on hand for people who might need help working through these difficult experiences. They might be able to give you the tools that you need, okay? So irrespective of their state, make a plan to check back in on them in a couple of days' time, all right? And in the very unlikely event that they express significant emotions or you're concerned that they might hurt themselves, or they give you cause for concern in some way, then you may need to help them to get the help that they need. Again, you're not a trained professional, nor are you expected to be, but having the right numbers on hand and seeking the guidance from a mental health professional on how to help them to get what they need, okay? It's an unlikely, very, very unlikely scenario, and it shouldn't stop you from asking someone if they're okay. And during these times of isolation, uncertainty, stress, it can exacerbate the psychological distress that some people are feeling. And often when we're feeling psychologically distressed, it can impair our ability to seek out the resources that we need. So if you know that someone's struggling, then maybe they need just help getting the resources that they need. Now, tied into that question was okay, but what if someone's struggling with loneliness specifically? Well, my answer to that would be similar to that of the above. Take the step forward, take the step towards the person, at least virtually at this point, and ask the question. They may say they're fine, in which case just, offer to touch base with them again in a couple of days or whatever. Perhaps you can arrange another call, or perhaps we can organize some way of interacting that reduces the pressure. Not all of us are extroverted, and some of these online situations are actually causing people more stress rather than less stress. But we still all need that social connection in our lives. We are social beings. So perhaps it's a shut up and write session where you get 3 or 4 or 5 of you and organize a block of 60 to 90 minutes where you simply get together on Zoom and you work together in each other's presence. It's not that you need to be uber productive, but it can be just a time where you are together, the goal is working, but you're not alone. Try a book club or a virtual 20-minute coffee break. It doesn't need to be long periods. It's just a chance for people to connect, a chance for people to voice if they are struggling. Because when you're feeling down or particularly anxious, as I said, there can be a sense that we often lack the resources to take the actions that we need and to help ourselves in the way that we need to be helped. So again, take that step forward and help the individual get what it is they need, whether it's isolation or if it's something else, and make it easy to connect in a way that doesn't ask a lot of the other person in those initial stages. What advice would I give for postdoctorals, doctoral students and postdoctoral researchers struggling with work overload during these times at home office? I've been asked this a lot. People, if you are experiencing this, you're not alone, right? The difficulty is that many of us, and myself included, have this really high expectations. We set massive expectations for ourselves and what we'd like to achieve. We do it always, but even during confinement, during a pandemic, we managed to do it to ourselves anyway. But with so much of that cognitive and emotional energy being consumed by everything else that's going on, many of us are simply not at our normal productive best. And that expectation, that huge expectation that we're placing on ourselves right now without the resources to do so, are adding to our stress and adding to our tension. So first of all, I'd say, ask yourself, who's setting that expectation? Who's driving your workload, and how can you make it more reasonable during these current times? Now, if it's not you setting those current expectations, then if it's coming from on high, if it's coming from your supervisor or whatever, then keep in mind that our supervisors are dealing with a significant level of stress and responsibility right now, and they will have in their minds that they need to perhaps be guiding you, that they will be asking things of you, or they're wanting to help you. They're wanting to give you tasks, to give you direction, or a sense of moving forward during these times, right? They'll not necessarily be factoring in everything that's on your plate or in your schedule. I certainly know that during my PhD and postdoc days, if my supervisor asked anything of me, teach something, review something, whatever it was, write something, I would say yes, and I would say yes immediately. And then I would promise some ridiculous deadline on top of that. So no matter what my workload was looking like. And it's critically important to consider that that's their wish list, right? They're asking things of you, and that we are entitled in many regards to push back, to protect our own time and to set boundaries. So if something feels too much, especially if something feels is too much right now, then we need to say so. Your supervisor is not going to read your mind, and if you need, they're not going to read your mind. So, but if you do need to take it on for whatever reason, then set a reasonable deadline, right? You don't usually have to do absolutely everything right now. And really briefly, make sure that you, with the workload that you do have and with the work that you do want to achieve, then critically you need to break down those tasks into super achievable, really bite-sized tasks. Write chapter 3 on your to-do list is unreasonable and it can feel overwhelming, right? But like asking yourself to, right, define the headings for my introduction. Great. And then you can tick those off when you've got them. Brain dump under heading 1, heading 2, heading 3. Tick them off as you do them. Celebrate the wins, however small they are, celebrate them, because that will help you gain motivation towards, showing up tomorrow and doing the work again, right? And lastly, the last question that I had was, how do we boost well-being within our scientific community? And whilst it seems a straightforward question, and given my work, it's not a small question. It's a big discussion, as I think many of you will know. But what I often challenge people to do is to be the scientist or be that academic when you're looking into your own lives. So what if, call into question your habits, call into question the way that you work and the way that you think. We often argue that hey, it's gotten me this far. Sure, Perfectionism has its perks. You tend to do good work. Imposter syndrome does as well. Makes you check and recheck. It makes you over prepare, but we really stop to take stock of the downsides of these ways of thinking or these habits of working. So I would challenge you to really genuinely experiment with prioritizing well-being in your life and see if it makes a difference. You can always go back to your status quo if you want to, but really give it a try. So what if you set up, a challenge for yourself? In the next month, I'm going to prioritize my well-being above all things. I mean, especially right now, I hope you can see that you can justify it perhaps more. So how do we prioritize our well-being? Well, in a lot of ways, it's really as simple as setting a solid foundation. Often when I talk about stress and overwhelm and productivity in our workloads, I talk about if this axis is stress, increasing stress, then there's sort of 3 bands, right? Down the bottom, when we're not feeling any level of stress, any level of tension, then we're apathetic. It's the blue zone. There's no motivation to do our work, and we're not able to engage with the task. It's when the deadline is too far away and we just can't motivate ourselves to do the work. In the middle band is the green zone, right? That's when we're doing our best work. That's when we're on task. It's when we're in flow zones. It's when work's going well for us. Now, above that green line, above that threshold is where we flip into the red zone, into that zone of overwhelm, of paralysis. I can't think, I can't function. I'm too stressed out to think clearly and be creative or do what it is I need to get done. Now, that line between it's a threshold, if you will, and by setting a solid foundation for our well-being, we can actually move that threshold. Right now, that threshold is way down here, and we might find ourselves tipping or flipping into overwhelm and moments of real stress much more easily because of all that we're dealing with at the moment. If we want to move that threshold back up again, then we need to work on those foundational things. And key among them is managing our sleep. It might sound simple, but actually try it out. See what happens if you go to sleep at the same time every day and you get up in the morning at the same time every day for 1 month. Commit to it and just see. Isolation is the perfect time to play with these hours, within your day. So really try and not look at your phones in the hour before you go to bed as well, because that blue light is really suppressing your melatonin production, and which is really, really critical for your sleep pressure, that need to go to sleep. So it also messes with your sleep architecture. It messes with the amount of time you spend in deep sleep, that restorative sleep that's critical for your immune system, which we don't need to argue is essential right now, but also it's critical for locking in memory as well, and it's essential for our well-being and our mental health. So sleep is key. The second one I will say is exercise. Sitting at our desks and marinating in all those stress hormones and glucose that's being generated is not beneficial to our ability to think clearly, to doing good work, and it's not good for our immune systems or our well-being. So get up and move as often as you can. Prioritize exercise in your day in whatever form it takes. Right now in my house, we can't leave, so I can't go for my run, which would be my default. We're having to get super creative. We've started doing like ninja training with the kids, where basically my husband and I throw cushions at our children and they duck and weave, and it's really cathartic and actually quite beneficial for all of our mental health, I think. And it gets a good laugh and it reduces some of that tension. So find creative ways to do some exercise because you need it. And the other two for laying that foundation are your nutrition and your social connection. They're critical for your peak brain performance, which is generally what we'd hope for, right? And also that socializing is critical for our well-being and our mental health always. So the difficulty is that we don't often realize just how much passive socializing we're doing during our day-to-day, right? That walking past the water cooler or going down to wherever it is, the bridge for a coffee or whatever, you don't acknowledge how much we're just passing and acknowledging other people or having small conversations or checking with our supervisors or whatever. So make sure you find a way to get that social connection into your life. Just quickly, 2 more points, because I'm pretty sure I'm going to be running out of time soon, is self-compassion, the way that we talk